Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. So in this video, I'm going to break down a lot of heat damage questions for you in hopes that you can get a better understanding on how to use heat, or if you've encountered damage, what are some things that you can do moving forward. So let's get into it. So since this video is based off of the questions from my last video, if we know what heat damage is, then we can better gauge whether my hair is damaged, whether your hair might be damaged, but the definition is really going to help us. So I did some research. I came up with the best definition that I can find. Now, the definition I got is heat damage occurs when heat is applied to hair strands on a setting that is too high. It damages the hair shaft and changes its original curly form. So for those of you asking me about my personal hair, I get why you were asking, because one, the texture changed, which is in the definition. However, I did not state that my hair had heat damage. Based on the definition, that is what heat damage is. When you alter the original texture of your hair, it is heat damage. So yes, my hair, in my opinion, is heat damaged, not only because I altered the texture, but I also altered the way that my hair grows, meaning that now there are two different textures. There's my original curly texture, about 5 inches long, and then the rest is like a 4B, 4A at times. I alter the texture. I have a line of demarcation where those two different textures meet, and if you want more of a definition on the line of demarcation, you can go and check out my previous video. But because of that line of demarcation, I'm getting thinning and shedding, and therefore, altogether, I know my personal hair is heat damaged. Now, to answer the follow-up question, well, then why did you say it was healthy? Well, I didn't mean that my hair personally was healthy. I meant that people who have used heat, they've altered their hair texture. Maybe they've gotten a texture change or something like that, but their hair is still growing and flourishing. I try to stay away from labeling other people and judging other people's hair, especially on this hair journey, because I really don't know your personal life situation. So if you're using heat, I don't ever want you to think your hair is damaged because you use heat, because your hair could probably be fine and it reverts right back to its original state and there are no issues. Then you can be somebody who uses heat and maybe your hair is a little bit looser, but it is still growing long, it's flourishing, you are not noticing shedding or thinning or anything like that. For you, looking at the definition, playing in your hair, knowing what it was before heat, after heat, you will know if your hair is heat damaged or not. So it's not really up to me to judge and point the finger. It's really just for me to give you as much information as you can, and then you can decide what to label your hair. So, I guess you can, for an example of what that might look like, all these different ranges of heat damage, I guess it could be like if you were to get a burn. There's 1st degree burns, 2nd degree burns, and 3rd degree burns. Some people are burned worse than others, but it doesn't mean that they didn't get burned. So you might have heat damage in a little form where it's just, it went from like 4C and it's still 4C, but it's just a little looser. Then you might have maybe a more, serious condition where your hair was 4C and now it's bone straight. So based on my last video, I did get a lot of questions basically trying to figure out if you've used heat once or twice, it doesn't make sense that your hair would be damaged. And I guess looking in, it makes sense for you to ask that question, because there's many YouTubers who have used heat once or twice and their hair is still continuing to grow and flourish. And then there's others who use heat all the time and their hair is growing and flourishing. So it makes sense that you would ask that question. But I want you to know that if you use heat on your hair, there is always going to be that risk of whether or not you are going to have your hair revert back to the original state, or if you're going to have damage by the end of it. Heat is one of those things where you have to actually ask yourself, well, why am I using heat? And the main purpose to use heat, there's a few purposes, but some of the main ones that come to mind is, one, you like the way it looks, you like the way it feels, you can style it easier, it's more manageable. There are reasons why we use heat and why we enjoy using heat. However, we have to understand that by putting heat on our hair at all, we are altering the texture for a time, we're altering our original curl pattern for a time in hopes that it reverts back once we put water on it. However, for some of us that just wasn't the case. So So the next question that I got a lot of is basically people trying to figure out, well, why would heat work for one person and not work for the other person? It doesn't make sense. There were people who left comments saying, I use heat all the time, I have 4C and my hair is still 4C, so it doesn't make sense, it's not adding up. However, with that being said, there are multiple reasons why you as a 4C hair person and me as a 4C hair person could use heat once or twice and have damage, and you can continue to use heat with no damage at all. And one of the only reasons why really is that we are all different. So even though you might seemingly have the same type of hair as me, it might not always be the case. And then we have people with mixtures. So as many of you know, the top of my hair grows at 4B and the sides and the back grows at 4C. And then you've got people who have sprinkles of, 4A in there, and it's just everybody's hair is different. So we can never ever assume that just because we all have 4C hair that heat's going to work for all of us in the same way. It doesn't work that way. So your hair grows out of your head differently based on so many factors. One of the factors being genetics. What are your parents like? What are your grandparents like? How was their hair? Was their hair thick and luscious and full, or were they more brittle? Were they more thin? So another thing is based on age. How old are you? Then you've got things like lifestyle. You've got things like, your overall health, your overall diet. Are you eating foods full of protein? Are you eating foods full of nutrients and vitamins? Because that is really going to help you to produce strong and healthy hair full of protein, making it thick and healthy. Then you've got people who use certain products. I might use a deep conditioner or a protein treatment that's DIY. Other people might buy theirs from the store and theirs might work and mine's might not. And the list is just endless as to why some of us can use heat and why some of us can't. So please do not think just because somebody has the same hair type as you that you can do what they're doing, because it really just doesn't work that way. So I did state in my last video that if you've used heat and you're experiencing the two different texture changes, to continue to use heat. Now a lot of people were kind of confused. They were saying things like, well, if heat caused the damage, then why would I use heat to fix the damage? But what I failed to explain in the video is that using heat is not actually fixing the heat damage that you may have caused. Using heat is keeping your hair at that one continuous texture. So if you have the two different textures, remember you have that line of demarcation, and that is where the shedding comes from and the thinning comes from. However, if you continue to use heat, you can keep your hair at one consistent texture, and therefore you're not experiencing shedding or thinning. Now, with that being said, it can either go two ways. If you've used heat and you continue to use heat, your hair can continue to grow and thrive and flourish, and there's no consequences over time. That's just the way your hair is. It can tolerate heat. However, there are other people, if they want to use heat, they might realize that, heat is actually causing more damage. My hair is thinning more, it's breaking more. Well, in those individuals, I say continue to try and do protein treatments, deep conditioning treatments, and if you want to continue to use heat, do that knowing that your hair is just being damaged slowly, and eventually you might have to, resort to trimming or cutting your hair off. If you've used heat and now you're experiencing the two different textures like myself, one thing that I personally would have done is I would have waited until my hair was about 1 inch long. That's every 2 months, and every 2 months I would blow dry my hair so that it's one even texture. So it's really up to you how often you blow dry your hair, because only you know how quickly it grows. Now, my personal advice to you, knowing what has gone on with heat, is if you've never used heat on your hair, don't use heat on your hair. If you don't want to go through any of this, just stay away from heat altogether and just learn to love your natural texture and just fall in love with your natural curl pattern. If you are one of those people who have not used heat, but you know for a fact you are going to use heat at some point in your hair journey, that's just something that you are going to do, then from now, make sure that you are eating a diet full of protein and nutrients that's helping to strengthen your hair from the root down. Make sure you are doing regular deep conditioning treatments, hot oil treatments, protein treatments. Make sure that you are strengthening your hair from now to avoid, hopefully to avoid any sort of heat damage issue. And then what you want to do is you want to try it on a small section first, preferably at the back. So what you want to do is get your blow dry some of your hair down, you know, leave it for a week. When you do your wash days, see if it's the same texture, see if it's the same as the rest or if it's gotten looser or anything like that. That way you'll know whether you want to put it on your entire head or not. If you're one of those people in my camp who is now dealing with the two different textures, we experienced heat damage from using heat, then you can once again take care of your hair and slowly trim it, trim away the damaged edges as you go, or you can cut it off and start over, or you can continue to use heat and see where that takes you. But if you are one of those people who have used heat on your hair and you've experienced nothing but bliss and your hair is growing and flourishing and thriving, then do what is working for you. The question that many people are asking is, well, what are you going to do with your hair now that it is heat damaged? You know, are you going to cut it? Are you going to keep blow drying it? What are you going to do with it? And I have an idea of what I would like to do with it, but what I'll do is I'll share that with you in an upcoming video. So if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please subscribe to this channel to just be on this journey of growing healthy hair 2017. If you have hair growth issues or anything like that, stay connected with me and I'm here to help you. Feel free to connect with me on Instagram and Facebook. And besides that, guys, thank you so much for watching another one of my videos. Don't be a stranger. Let's stay connected and I will see you soon. Bye, guys.